Greetings, friends, and welcome to the latest episode of the Federation's Most Wanted, a Blake 7 podcast. I'm the Preacher 711, and I'm on a mission to seek, locate, and interview voices from across the Blake 7 fandom to find out what drew them to Blake 7 and why we're still talking about it 45 years later. Um, Today, I'm fortunate to be joined by one of the big creative forces in the Blake 7 fan community at the moment. He's a man whose posters and art adorn the walls of the Imaginarium. Behind me on my bookshelves are the glorious annuals and compilations of adventures that he's curated and put together. It's the wonderful Cultedge. Graham, welcome, sir.
Hi, nice to be here. Lovely to meet you again.
Yeah, exactly. It's for those listening. It's Forever Avon was the last time I think we spoke, wasn't it? You had a glorious
It was.
stand up
When was
there, some
that?
exclusive artwork.
When was that? Back in, was it July? June,
July, yeah,
July?
back in
Can't
the summer,
remember.
sir.
Yeah, feels like
Yeah,
a lifetime ago.
yeah. And you were auctioning off a limited edition version of the annual.
That's right. Yeah, we created a special kind of one-off for the event with the Forever Avon artwork on the cover. Content was the same, but it was just a different cover, and it raised, I think it raised over £350 in the charity auction, which was fantastic. Didn't
It was
expect it
amazing.
to go for anywhere that much. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember sort of boldly saying to you on the build up to it, "Oh, I'm there for that auction. I'm coming home with that annual." And I think I was out of the race within about 2 minutes. It was intense. It was incredible to watch.
Well, if it, I mean, even I don't have a copy. We only did one, and the person that bid got it. Even I don't have one, so it is truly
Mhm.
a one-off that edition.
Amazing. So before we get into my little questions, so just for those people that don't know you, there might be two or three of them out there. Do you want to tell me a bit about what you do under sort of the Cult Edge banner, what you've been creating for Blake Seven?
Yeah, well, initially, Cult Edge was just an opportunity for me. I'm a graphic designer by trade. I've got a background in magazine and publication design, so I've always had a big interest in things like magazine design, page design, that kind of thing. And as a lot of things recently, it was born out of lockdown. I needed a creative project. The stars kind of aligned. The initial idea was just to produce some posters, stick them up on Etsy and see if anyone was interested. Luckily, they were. And I know you mentioned earlier, you've got a few on your wall behind you. I always still get a buzz when I see the work out there on people's walls. It makes it feel a bit real. But yeah, it's a creative outlet more than anything else. Tied in with my obsession with Blake Seven in particular, but cult TV in general. But it's kind of turned into more of a Blake Seven creative outlet at the moment. But that might change in the near future. Let's see what happens. But yeah, I guess the big project was and which you've alluded to earlier is the 1982 annual, the missing annual. It's
Mm.
something I'd always wanted to try my hand at. There was a big empty shelf space on that shelf for a number of years, and lockdown, stuck at home, sit in front of a Mac. I could have thrown myself into freelance and proper work, if you like, but I thought, no, I'm going to use this as a chance to do something different. So I put out a joke tweet with a cover of the annual saying, wouldn't it be great if this existed? And then loads of tweets later, it became apparent very quickly that actually, you know what, maybe this could happen. And it did. So it's kind of grown from there. So there's been a couple of anthologies, as you say. Almost finished work on the 2023 annual, which will be out early in the new year. And we've got a production diary coming next year with Jonathan Helm at Making Blake Seven, the famous
Mm.
Making Blake Seven on Twitter.
Yeah.
That's the next big project for next year. So yeah, it's kind of continued and grown, and it's great doing stuff for fans. It's if anything, it's a showcase for the creativity of Blake Seven fans in particular. I have to say, I mean, we've had so much amazing work sent in terms of artwork and stories and features that it's an embarrassment of riches. So
Mm.
it's a pleasure kind of pulling these products and these books together because if I'm if I'm getting excited sitting here designing them and laying them out and editing them, then I know that the fans are going to get excited too because I'm a fan. So yeah. So yeah, that's Cult Edge, I guess, in a nutshell. It's a bit of a creative outlet for a frustrated designer.
Brilliant. Okay, mate, well, we're going to dive into some questions for you now.
Cool.
I'm sticking these kind of uniform across the series so that basically everybody can learn a bit about everybody else. And like
Yeah.
I think I said before, yeah, this is kind of this is the what the Colin back in the summer brought out in me, right? Was that desire to hear other fans' stories, how they discovered it, how they found it, and so on. So I'm going to launch with that one. How and when did Blake Seven come into your life?
Oh, I'm afraid I'm old school. I was there at the beginning. January 1978, I was at primary school and back home in Scotland in a place called Dunfermline. And I don't know what, it just kind of immediately kind of jumped out at me, even at the age of 10, as something, oh my goodness, what is this? I'd always obviously watched Doctor Who, still do watch Doctor Who, but this felt different, and there was a real kind of charge to it. And I was a fan from day one. I remember going into school, to primary school, the next day, and for the following weeks, we'd reenact entire
Mm.
episodes in the playground, at sort of breaks and at lunchtime. And there was an entire area of the school playground which was the Liberator. Even now, when I walk past that school when I go home to visit family, I look at it and go, "That's my Liberator." So yeah, I was there at the beginning. And was a pretty much obsessed from fairly early on. So yeah, old school, I think.
Brilliant. And what this sounds a bit of an odd question, so let me explain. But what series are you? What of the series do you most identify with? What would be your go-to
Yeah.
Blake Seven series?
Good question. That changes, like a lot of things, like favorite episodes. It changes a lot, but I've always, you might have guessed, I'm a big fan of Series D, but I
Mm.
think I'd say my favorite overall series is the third series, Series C. I love that series from beginning to end.
Yeah. Oh, brilliant. Okay, it's really interesting that because it's like there's not necessarily the answer you expect you're going to get. You know, I would if someone had ever said this to me before. I thought Graham, it's going to be D. Scorpio's on everything. You know, it's definitely so C. Okay, and Team Blake or Team Avon? What are you?
Blake or Team Avon? No Team Gan then. No option for Team Gan.
No Team Gan, I'm afraid.
Again, I mean, I think when I initially watched the show back in the late 70s, before Gareth left the show, I was absolutely Team Blake. I was kind of, I kind of saw at that age Blake as a father figure. I thought he was amazing, a great character. But I think, as with a lot of fans, as the program developed and the characters developed, very much Team Avon. Paul Darrow is just magnetic presence on Blake Seven from day one. But when he took over the reins, I guess, from Series C, I think that's when, you know, who's Blake?
Yeah.
Avon all the way. Although it was always a thrill when, Blake was mentioned, even when he
Yeah.
wasn't, when he came back, obviously for Terminal and finally for Blake. Even when Blake was mentioned, I used to get a bit of a thrill of, oh, that continuity Blake, they're still talking about Blake, so he might still be out there. But yeah, Team Avon. I think overall Team Avon for me.
Nice. And this is, I know you just mentioned about like series love shifting. So this is a tricky one. It's a question I don't want to ever face particularly, but favorite episode. And that
Oh,
could be
this is
favorite in terms of best, favorite in terms of feel good, however you want to interpret that question.
yeah, yeah. I mean, again, this has changed. I think at some point, I think every episode's been a favorite at some point, and even animals. The much maligned
Mm.
animals. There's a lot to be said for why it's at the bottom of a lot of people's lists. I think Josette Simon's astounding in that episode. But anyway, favorite episode at the moment. I've kind of been rewatching Series C and recently watched Children of Auron, and
Mm.
I think at the moment that's probably my favorite episode. It's just such a big story with lots of brilliant locations, and that some of the character work in that episode is amazing. I think Jan Chappell does a fantastic job in that. Servalan kind of almost reduces me to tears by the end as well. She's just such a force in that episode. So at the moment, I'd say City at the Edge of the World. Closely followed by, I'm not going to say Blake because that's probably an obvious one, but it's such an astounding episode. say Ultra World. Throw that into the
Okay,
mix.
throw that. Oh, geez.
Yeah, well, I watched during lockdown. My partner and I watched Blake Seven from beginning to end, and he'd never really watched it, and that's his favorite episode. I mean,
Really? Okay.
absolutely. It was difficult to get a reaction out of him most after each episode, other than yeah, okay, that was fine. But at the end of Ultra World, he went, "That was brilliant. I loved that. That was my favorite episode." So I kind of watched that vicariously through his eyes and realized, you know what, it's a dead good episode. That so yeah. Series C, two Series C episodes at the moment. Ask me again next week, though. I don't know.
I think it's interesting what you mentioned there about like Children of Auron. There's a couple of bits in that have always like jumped out at me a little bit in like things like the quality of the makeup when everybody's ill
Yeah,
is above par for BBC. And in the other one, I've always wanted to understand how they achieved it. I'd love Paul Darrow to still be around to answer this. Is the opening segment of Rumours of Death when he's in prison, when Avon's in prison. Paul Darrow looks incredibly gaunt for Darrow,
yeah,
and he looks
yeah,
incredibly thin in that overall.
yeah.
How was that achieved? He really does look haggard.
Absolutely. And for me, when Blake Seven did kind of buck the trend of TV at that time, so yeah, when Paul grew his stubble for that episode, and obviously threw himself into that episode and that character, but also in Terminal where they dim the lights on the Liberator. I'm like,
Yeah,
why not dim the lights the whole time? Because it
absolutely.
lends even more realism and it gives it even more character and even more kind of dark, literal darkness. So yeah, when those kind of things happen in Blake Seven, you get a glimpse at what it could have been if they'd turned the lights down, gone even
Yeah.
grittier than they did. But it's a product of its time, and they're all brilliant. I wouldn't change any of them. Don't get me wrong. I wouldn't change any episode at all. But those little glimpses of things that they could have done a little bit more, you think, oh, imagine if the Liberator had been that dark
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, the editing had been a little bit tighter, or but you can't have
Yeah.
perfection every week. So then this question then is a bit more difficult because I'm going to ask you what's the least favorite, and I'm not saying the worst. Carefully choosing my wording there. Just your least favorite wouldn't be the priority.
Yeah, I was thinking about this question because I listened to the first podcast from,
Good man, well plugged.
and so obviously I've been thinking, right, I might get the same questions. And I think I'd probably go back to series one, series A. There are two or three episodes in there that I could happily, not watch for quite a while yet. Again, I don't know. And I think the previous contributor mentioned this episode, The Web. I just struggle with that episode because of and as a Blake Seven fan, we do have to deal with, uh, pretty dodgy special effects. We get over it, we get past it, but I can't get past the man with his head through the and it breaks it. I mean, big fan of cult TV. I mean, I'll put up with a lot. I'll put a lot up with a lot of dodgy production, but I can't get past, and it's the kind of plasticine body that they've stuck. So it's objectively it's a great story, great episode, but it completely breaks it for me when that head through the cardboard pops.
I'll go with you on that. I found the odd bit on that for me that I've become less tolerant of as time's gone on is the sound mixing on that bit. That the bubbling of the fish tank is louder than the voices.
You're right.
And it's like, did no one think to like tone that down? Maybe reposition the mic. I don't know. But yeah, I've just found, and especially if you listen to it through a modern surround sound system, it tends to prioritize that. So you have to fiddle around.
And let me just caveat as well: if after this I go into the living room and Dave's stuck on the web, I'll sit down and watch it. It's not that I dislike it. It's at the moment it's my least favorite.
I've always, same as you, I've always kind of said there isn't an episode like Seven that I'd say I don't like. There really isn't. Like you said, the much maligned animals. I always think there's bits of each I would never want to lose. There are scenes, there are moments that to me just resonate across all of it. It might be a single line of dialogue.
Every episode's got a little bit of magic in it. There's something in every episode, and in some episodes it's peppered throughout. In some, one or two moments, but it's those one or two moments that keep you there. There's something
Absolutely.
really magical about Blake Seven, I think, in that regard.
So I think this is one that you might surprise me with the answer of. I don't know about this one. Liberator or Scorpio?
Oh, see, right, okay. As a designer, as a graphic designer, the Liberator, 100%. Beautiful ship, absolutely stunning design, beautiful ship. Um, and I still get shivers when it first arrives. That first shot
Mm,
in
yeah.
episode two. Is it episode two?
Yep.
When it has that kind of glow behind it, it's just stunning. Um, I just wish they'd used the model better. And I know that Making Blake Seven has posted some shots
Mm,
of how that were just not used, that look spectacular. So Liberator, in terms of aesthetics, Liberator, but in terms of the grittiness of Blake Seven, I'm a big fan of Scorpio. It's a bucket of bolts. It's a functional bucket of bolts. It's, to me, it's got a lot of character, and it's kind of more in fitting with, what Blake Seven, what the crew of Blake Seven kind of were at that time, if you know what I mean. So
mm.
it's very, very close. Liberator's beautiful, but I think I do prefer Scorpio. I do.
I think it, like you say, it fitted with the season definitely.
Yeah,
There's no other way, and it fitted with. I've always felt that there was that arc of,
yeah,
they went up, up, up. Then you had the wilderness years in Series C. We've got the toys. What do we do with them now? And then
yeah,
the
yeah,
kind of inevitable collapse with Season D. And there they were with, a rusty human tech ship. And I always
yeah,
loved that contrast between the advanced alien bit versus we've now got a ship that needs to worry about fuel. Well, we've not had to worry about that for a while. What do we do? It was
yeah.
brilliant. I
I
loved
might
it a
regret
lot.
I might regret that choice, after this podcast,
No,
but
you
we'll
won't.
see.
You won't.
But at the
I,
moment, yeah. I mean, when I see it, I think it's because I've worked with it on the annual for so long, and it's just that when I see it and I see people who've supplied artwork or renders of it, every time I get a new render from a contributor, I'm like, oh my God, that ship is just stunning. It's a great
yeah,
looking ship. But definitely the Liberator for beauty.
my mind always goes to that. There's that brilliant shot in Rescue of Scorpio landed. And whenever I
Yeah,
imagine it, if anybody then said to me, Scorpio, that's where my brain goes. I just love that
yeah.
whole, there it is landed on the ground. It's
That's quite an iconic
brilliant.
shot of Scorpio, isn't it? It's not. I
Yeah,
think the special effects, that special effect in Rescue specifically, is stands up to current.
yeah, I agree. It does.
Yeah.
Okay, another multiple choice one for you. Travis 1 or Travis 2?
Okay, there could not be two more different Travises, which has always flummoxed me. So if you're going to bring back, if the actor can't do it, fine, but try and at least bring back the same character.
Mm.
Uh, they could have been more different. I think in terms of Travisiness, definitely the first one. That kind of ruthlessness and that brutal kind of take no prisoners kind of attitude. Definitely, he's the Travisiest Travis. But
But
for high camp and a bit of a laugh, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, the second one. But I don't know. It's a difficult one. That I think I'd go for Stephen Greif. Yeah, and that's nothing against Travis Mark II, because there's a lot to be said for that portrayal. But
yeah,
yeah,
again, I always like to think he back to what we were saying about like peppering of goodness. Croucher has got pepperings of goodness, greatness even. There are some bits he does
yeah,
really well. He plays Brian Croucher brilliantly.
he
That's what
does,
I'll say.
and he's a great advocate for the show. Still,
He
Brian,
is.
it's brilliant to see every interview I see with him. He's still got a lot of affection for that role, and he came into it. He had to take over another actor's role, and bless him, he did something completely different with it. But as I say, he couldn't be more different from Travis One. It's
No.
like were there no discussions about maybe watch a bit of Stephen Greif's work yet? No, but in saying that, both fantastic. But yeah, the Travisiest Travis for me is Stephen Greif.
Brilliant. I love this. I'm going to steal that and maybe not credit you with it. Travis East. Who survived? Who survived the Gowd Prime shootout in your head canon? Did anybody survive?
Oh God, that's a tricky one because we've all got our own theories on what
Mm,
happens next. it's a very it was but you know it was a very definite full stop at the end of that series, wasn't it? I don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that Villa survived
Mm,
because he tends to survive. You know, he's a say what you like about his coward, his supposed cowardice. I
mm,
don't think he's a coward for a minute.
no.
I think Villa's got a knack for surviving. I think that's why he was with the crew from the beginning because he knew that's how he was going to survive. So I don't know. Definitely, I think Villa for sure. I don't know. I'd like to say Avon, and I've analysed those gunshots over the closing credits times, and I know that it's Avon's gun that fires last, isn't it? In that
Mm,
sound at the end, so that suggests that he's still standing at the end. So I don't know. I think I'd guess maybe an obvious answer, but I'd like to think that Avon and Villa survived and continued in some form. Um, I don't know.
brilliant.
It'd be interesting
Yeah.
to see what they would do with any potential recontinuation. I don't know.
A lifetime ago, I watched this with my sons, and
Yeah.
one of them straight away, as soon as we got to the end, was like, "Oh, Villa's not dead." Like as definitive as you like. And I've always kind of
Yeah, yeah,
taken
yeah.
that as it was just there wasn't even a pause. It was just like,
Interesting.
obviously, like Villa
Yeah,
wouldn't be
yeah,
dead. Everyone else dead. Villa,
yeah.
not a chance. But it's
I
funny.
remember we interviewed Michael Keating in the 1982 annual, and when I was writing the introduction to that interview, I think I said, in a lot of ways, Blake Seven is the story of Villa, and I absolutely believe that. I mean, Michael was in every single episode, and I think, you know, the whole story of Blake Seven was the story of Villa,
Mhm.
and his journey because he was a through thread through the whole series. He was the viewer. I think Villa was the viewer of Blake Seven. They're the one that we were supposed to perhaps identify with the most, and I think definitely one of my favorite characters
Oh
without
yeah,
doubt. Yeah, so
absolutely.
I think for that reason alone, I think that's why Villa is the last one standing, or the first one that gets off the floor at the end.
I've I always thought, you look at Keaton's performances for all of it. He's just gives gold. Any opportunity, he's brilliant. The nuances he brings to it. Look at
Yeah,
Orbit. He was. I mean, that bit at the end with sort of Avon stalking him around the shuttle is just chilling.
stunning. Yeah,
He's brilliant in it. I loved one of my personal favourites would always be Gold. I love
yeah,
Villa playing Hardman Villa, which we hadn't seen since the way back. I
fantastic.
just love the way he's got a random person on board the Scorpio that's
Yeah,
potentially slightly weaker than he is even,
yeah,
and he
yeah.
just kind of lords it. I loved it. I think Keaton's just magic, absolutely magic in
There
that.
was the scene in Orbit, wasn't it, that they cut where we see Villa crying
Yeah.
in one of the hatches. I wonder if that footage exists. Maybe if we get a complete Blu-ray set, they can find that scene
Oh,
because
don't
I
say those
think
magic
that
words.
I think that scene would have made a brilliant episode even better. So
Yeah, the
yeah,
extended cut. Oh, imagine it.
well, let's hope one
So
day.
you've taken me then to my final question on the time clock,
Yeah, yeah.
nicely, which is, what would your Blake Seven wish be if you could make something happen? Blu-rays,
Oh God.
continuations, action figures. What would it be?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely would like to see complete series Blu-ray box sets. I think they're totally within the realms of being doable. One of the things I've always said since doing these books and stuff is that there is a market out there for Blake Seven merchandise. Obviously, Big Finish know this, or they
Mm,
wouldn't be continuing to make the amazing audios and books that they do. We've had tremendous success and been able to raise a lot of money for charities because people are buying Blake Seven merchandise. So at the very least, I would like to see a Blake Seven, four Blu-ray box sets, and in the kind of same style as the Doctor Who collections.
mm.
Some Lee Binding artwork on the cover, and I don't know if you saw the tweet from Lee Binding earlier this week, who said that they did pitch
Yeah, I
a
saw
Blu-ray
that.
box, and that he created artwork. I'm trying very hard to see if we can get that artwork for the next
Yeah,
annual.
go on, twist his
It
arm,
looks
Graham. Come on.
unlikely, but I'm going to keep trying, and I'm going to
No,
keep
you're a
asking.
persuasive fella. You
Well,
can,
we'll
if
see.
anybody
We'll
can.
see. I would love to see what Lee Binding did with that. So yeah, absolutely Blu-ray box sets, and I would mirror your previous contributor as well and say action figures. I think character options should drop a Blake Seven figure into their Doctor Who sets once in a while, just as a little extra, and they'll and just see the reaction that they'll get. And I think they would find that, oh, there's a market here for figures. So drop an Avon into a Doctor Who box,
Oh,
character options, action figure box, and just wait for the reaction, because I think you'd be pleasantly surprised.
yeah. I think, a Gouda Prime Edition Avon with a
Oh,
shotgun and his
yeah,
Scorpio clip gun in a cross draw holster that I can take out.
yeah.
Name
Listen,
your number.
I would even take a web box set, and with that little guy with the cardboard, I would even take that at this point.
I love that. Even a web. Oh, I'd go that low, says Graham. I'd take a web set with people in anoraks. That's what I'm saying.
Totally. Yeah. A
Um,
little desk for the desk as well.
oh, brilliant. Thank you so much, sir, for your time today. We've got to
Oh,
draw
that was
things
quick.
sadly to a close. I know, doesn't the time go? This is what
Oh,
happens.
well, when you talk about something you love, the time goes quick,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
I hope you'll come back in the future if we do
Love
a
to.
second lap. And I
Sure.
can think of some other inventive questions. But for now, while I've got it, just to say, a huge thanks for all you've done in sort of keeping Blake Seven alive. For me personally, it's been amazing that, I was on a sadly unused podcast with you some time back where you
That's
first
right.
floated the idea of the annual. You
That's
set
right.
out this
Yeah. Yeah.
dream, and I always reuse that story. Like, I was there. I
You
was
were.
there when Graham said
Oh,
an
thanks,
annual.
man. And thanks for being such a big advocate of what we do. You've been such a big supporter, and I know Carol and I both really appreciate it.
Yeah, no, thank you, sir. And thanks to you guys out there for listening. Do like, do subscribe, do follow, and we'll keep the series going as long as you're watching. So thanks a lot. Goodbye, my friends. Goodbye.